هللت فراشي بجوعي المرة وعهدت إلهي دي آخر مرة. صباح النور. مذاكرة
انت بتسيبني ده ليه؟
ما حدش يقدر يتكلم وانت موجودة.
ليه بس كده خلاص؟ انت عارف ترنيمة أمبر فينيوس فيك أصلا؟
بس ممكن بس خلينا نبتدي الترنيمة الأول كل عارفها. مرممة الثارة ابني.
أنا ليه ما عملتش حاجة خالص؟
مش مرممة الثارة.
بحاول.
Because I think we are correct.
أنا ما أعرفهاش.
تعال اسمعي.
هقف جنبك أنا ما أعرفهاش فعلا ما أعرفهاش.
حط حياتنا قدامك ونسلم كل الأيام جايين لك نشتاق نبقى لك خارجين من دنيا الأوهام ياللي في زمن الحب لقيتنا مرت بحياتنا وحبتنا وقبلتنا نبقى من شعبك وبدمك انت فادتنا وبدمك انت فادتنا مش ممكن نبقى لنفسينا ونعيش ايامنا وليالينا نشتاق لسراب زي البقت وأماني هي مش لينا دي حياتنا نيها عندك خطة محفوظة من بدء الكون عايزين نحياها عشان مجدك زي ما تحب احنا نكون زي ما تحب احنا نكون ارسلنا جيش يشهد عنك تبقى انت ملكنا وفرحتنا والكنز اللي مالي قلوبنا وحياتنا وكل دنيتنا اكسرنا ونورنا بنورك عيش فينا وادينا حياتك اخفينا وانت اظهر فينا واحفظنا بس لمرضاتك واحفظنا بس لمرضاتك.
بسم الاب والابن والروح القدس اله واحد امين. نشكرك يا رب على كل حال من اجل كل حال وفي كل حال. نشكرك يا رب ان انت سمحت لنا ان احنا نتجمع النهارده يا رب وناخد بركه القداس ونتناول. نشكرك يا رب على كل محبه انت بتديها لنا. نشكرك يا رب على كل عطيه انت اديتها لنا يا رب. نشكرك يا رب على كل يوم جديد انت سمحت ان احنا نعيش فيه نقدم توبه فيه يا رب ونقرب منك اكتر وناخد بركه يا رب ونتملي يا رب من بركاتك يا رب وعطاياك. نشكرك يا رب احنا ما نقدرش يا رب نوفي اي جزء من اللي انت بتقدمه لنا في حياتنا يا رب ولا نقدر يا رب هنقعد نشكر طول حياتنا يا رب على حاجات يا رب انت بتدينا اكتر منها بكتير يا رب. حافظ علينا يا رب، باركنا يا رب. يا رب خلينا يا رب نمتلئ النهارده يا رب من الكلمة اللي هنسمعها يا رب وناخد بركة. دايما انت وعدتنا يا رب، دايما بتملانا ببركاتك وبتدينا فرص اكتر يا رب لحياتنا. اسمعنا لما نقول لك بشكر. ابانا الذي في السماء يتقدس اسمك، ياتي ملكوتك، اغفر لنا ذنوبنا كما نغفر نحن ايضا للمذنبين، ادخلنا في تجربة لا تنجنا من الشر، ان يوسف وسعادتنا ان يغفر المركز.
هي عارفة ان الاجتماع بيبتدي وربع فزارة تيجي نعمل أول فيك أسرع.
شو الحل؟
ولا أنت مش عارفها؟
أنا ما أعرفهاش بس هقعد معك، أو أنا سمعت التقرير اللي بتقولها
بس
ممكن تقدميها؟
حد عارف ترنيمة أنبا أنطونيوس فيك أسرار؟ حد عارفها؟ لأ؟ مش قوي؟ طب ممكن نحفظها مع بعض. هي الترنيمة بمناسبة ان عيد الأنبا أنطونيوس يوم 30 أو 31 في شهر يناير، فخلينا نرنم له ترنيمة كده هوت، وبتتكلم عن حياته، هو ازاي حياته دي مليانة أسرار. هو أبو الرهبنة في العالم كله، الناس كلها بتعرف الرهبنة، بس عشان خاطر الأنبا أنطونيوس هو أول واحد قرر إنه يعيش الحياة دي. هي بتتقال كتير على أغابي، فلو كنتوا بتسمعوا أغابي يمكن تبقوا فاميليار بيها، بس أنا حافظاها بطريقة مختلفة سنة صغيرة، فهحفظكم نفس الطريقة اللي أنا حفظتها في الدير لما رحت الدير في مصر. حاولوا تقولوا معايا لو قدرتوا تاخدوا النغمة. أوكي؟ أنبا أنطونيوس فيك أسرار، كل ما فكر فيها احتار، لما تأمل فيك ألاقيك لغز حيار الأفكار، وحياتك دي سر غريب تشهد لعمل روحي عجيب، وحياتك دي سر غريب تشهد لعمل روحي عجيب. انت سميت بشر وبقيت زي ملايكة السماء، ولا ملاك سبت سماك وبقيت بشر زينا. انت سميت بشر وبقيت زي ملايكة السماء، ولا ملاك سبت سماك وبقيت بشر زينا. قلبك عاش التوبة حياة، روح الله بالحب ملاه، لما سمعت الرب نداك سبت الدنيا ورحت وراه، دوست المال ويا الشهوات، حب العالم فيك كان مات. دوست المال ويا الشهوات، حب العالم فيك كان مات. انت سميت بشر وبقيت زي ملايكة السماء، ولا ملاك سبت سماك وبقيت بشر زينا. انت سميت بشر وبقيت زي ملايكة السماء، ولا ملاك سبت سماك وبقيت بشر زينا. عشت وحيد في الصحراء سنين، بجهاد صلب ونعمة عين، في تواضع سحق الشياطين، جم حربوك قلت أنا مسكين. بالحكمة وروح الإيمان أرشدت جموع الرهبان. بالحكمة وروح الإيمان أرشدت جموع الرهبان. انت سميت بشر وبقيت زي ملايكة السماء، ولا ملاك سبت سماك وبقيت بشر زينا. يا حضني بدفينا، يا أبوة بتشفع فينا. خلي حياتك تبقى منار ليسوع مرشدي هدينا. احنا تعابة هنا سندنا، بصلاتك اطلب عنا. احنا تعابة هنا سندنا، بصلاتك اطلب عنا. انت سميت بشر وبقيت زي ملايكة السماء، ولا ملاك سبت سماك وبقيت بشر زينا. انت سميت بشر وبقيت زي ملايكة السماء، ولا ملاك سبت سماك وبقيت بشر زينا.
أما أنطونيوس كان في قصص كتيرة، طبعا كلنا عارفين قصص كتيرة، بس حاجة من الحاجات اللي دايما راسخة في مش سامع، مش كده؟ كده سامع؟ طيب. حاجة من الحاجات اللي راسخة في بالي كل ما بسمع قصة اسم الأنبا أنطونيوس، إن الرهبان كانوا بيقولوا من كل أنحاء العالم، إن هو معروف دوت سانت أنثوني ذا إيجيبشن، ده سانت أنثوني أوف إيجيبت، ده يعني مش لوكال، ده انترناشونال. بس اللي كان معروف عنه إن هم كانوا يجوا يقولوا له إيه؟ يقعدوا يقولوا له يكفينا النظر إلى وجهك يا أبي. يعني حتى لو ما فتحتش بقك وما قلتش حاجة خالص، يكفينا ان احنا نقعد عند رجليك كده نبص على وشك بس. الانسان اللي بيبقى ليه عشرة مع ربنا كده بتلاقي ان ربنا بيطلع من وشه، وهم كل اللي عايزينه من الانبا أنطونيوس ان هم بس يقعدوا تحت رجليه ويشوفوا البركة ديت. في الانبا ابونا اندراوس، عارفين ابونا اندراوس السماويلي اللي وشه بيبقى منور؟ نفس الفكرة كده انت في ناس كده بتبص لهم بتحس ان حياتك تحولت من غير ما يعملوا اي حاجه، من غير ما يصلوا، من غير ما يتكلموا، اختلفت، مش كده؟
عارف ضعفي وطبعي، عارف جرحي وألمي، وفي ايدك يا رب فرحي، وحضنك ده اماني. عارف ضعفي وطبعي، عارف جرحي وألمي، وفي ايدك يا رب فرحي، وحضنك ده اماني. لما اجيلك وانا تعبان، باخد منك كل حنان، والعطشان معك رويان. رد لنفسي من الأحزان، لما أجيلك وأنا تعبان، باخد منك كل حنان، والعطشان معك رويان. رد لنفسي من الأحزان، عارف ضعفي وطبعي، عارف جرحي وألمي، وفي ايدك يا رب فرحي وحضنك ده اماني. عارف ضعفي وطبعي، عارف جرحي وألمي، وفي ايدك يا رب فرحي وحضنك ده اماني. انت النور اللي بيهديني وسط ظلامي ويعزيني، جوا كلامك ألقى سلامي. راحتي معاك انت يا انجيلي، انت النور اللي بيهديني وسط ظلامي ويعزيني، جوا كلامك ألقى سلامي. راحتي معاك انت يا انجيلي، عارف ضعفي وطبعي، عارف جرحي وألمي، وفي ايدك يا رب فرحي وحضنك ده اماني. عارف ضعفي وطبعي، عارف جرحي وألمي، وفي ايدك يا رب فرحي وحضنك ده اماني. لما همومي يا رب تزيد بصرخ ليك يا رب انا ليك، واستنى بشوق الاقيك تحضني وتحن عليا. لما همومي يا ربي زيد بصرخ ليك يا رب انا ليك، واستنى بشوق الاقيك تحضني وتحن عليا. عارف ضعفي وطبعي، عارف جرحي وألمي، وفي ايدك يا رب فرحي وحضنك ده اماني. عارف ضعفي وطبعي، عارف جرحي وألمي، وفي ايدك يا رب فرحي وحضنك ده اماني. صوت السما دايما يتكلم لما نصلي ولما نسلم، صوت الراعي صوته يطمن، صوته يخلي القلب يرنم. صوت السما دايما يتكلم لما نصلي ولما نسلم، صوت الراعي صوته يطمن، صوته يخلي القلب يرنم. عارف ضعفي وطبعي، عارف جرحي وألمي، وفي ايدك يا رب فرحي وحضنك ده اماني. عارف ضعفي وطبعي، عارف جرحي وألمي، وفي ايدك يا رب فرحي وحضنك ده اماني. طيب على بال ما دكتورة نيفين تعمل السيت اب للكمبيوتر بتاعها، خلوني أسألكم كم سؤال. هي إيه أهم حاجة في أسرتنا؟ حد قال حاجة؟ إيه أهم حاجة في أسرتنا؟ ولادنا. طنط منيرة بتقول ولادنا. طب هم ليه ولادنا مهمين؟ منال بتقول هدية من عند ربنا. إيه تاني؟ ولادنا وزنة. بالظبط، بالظبط جدا. مذبح. ازاي مذبح؟ مذبح دي جديدة. يعني ايه مذبح؟ What do you mean؟
يعني قبل ما نقرب منهم لازم نكون ريدي ان احنا بحرص شديد نتعامل معاهم، لانها حاجه من ربنا وربنا جواهم، ويعني فعلا هنحاسب عليها.
كلام صميم. كويس خالص. حد عنده رأي تاني عايز يقوله؟ ايه رأيكم؟ عايز تقولي حاجه؟ مش عايزه. طيب هم فعلا اولادنا وزنه، وعلشان كده احنا نفسنا لازم نبقى متحضرين زي ما قلتي بالظبط. احنا نفسنا لازم نبقى متحضرين ولازم نبقى جاهزين. احنا هنعمل ايه؟ احنا هنتناقش معاهم ازاي؟ لازم كمان نبقى اب تو ديت، لازم نبقى فاهمين هم بيمروا بايه وعليهم ضغوط ايه. احنا في بلد مختلف عن البلد اللي احنا اتولدنا فيه. الضغوطات عليهم تختلف عن الضغوطات اللي كانت علينا احنا لما كنا احنا في سنهم. اللي بيتعرضوا له مختلف عن اللي احنا كنا بنتعرض له لما احنا كنا في سنهم. عشان كده احنا كمان لازم نبقى متحضرين ولازم نبقى فاهمين ازاي نفتح معاهم مناقشة، نتكلم معاهم عن الحاجات اللي بيتعرضوا لها ازاي، نساعدهم ازاي، ولو مش عارفين نساعدهم نجيب لهم مساعدة ازاي. أولادنا فعلا وزنة وهنقدم عنها حساب وكالة في الآخر. فلازم نكون حرصة احنا ازاي بنربيهم وازاي بنتكلم معاهم، ازاي نحضرهم للي هيواجهوه، ونبقى احنا كمان متحضرين للي هم ممكن يواجهوه، ممكن يقعوا تحت ضغط. دكتورة نيفين، ثانك يو سو ماتش ان انت هتكلمينا في الموضوع ده النهارده، والتعرض والضغط اللي الولاد بيقعوا فيه او عليه تحت نير المواقع الإباحية، وازاي نكسر القيود اللي بتربطنا او بتربط اولادنا بالحاجات دي. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. We are not recording this. Right? I thought you had said that you are. Okay.
It's the other way.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. That way? No, you're fine. Thank you. I'll fix it. Hi guys. Thank you for having me. I feel off center. Can I get كده شوية? I'm okay. I'm okay. I got it. Okay. So, we'll start. معلش, this one's going to be all in English because a lot of these words are bigger for me and I don't know what the Arabic is. So most of what we're going to talk about is the idea of social media and pornography and the ways it affects our children. And we're going to talk a little bit about the ways that it affects us too as adults, right? It's not just our kids. We're just as vulnerable to a lot of these things. Oh, that's the kids' slides. So I was just with the high schoolers talking about the same thing. So a couple of you were there. It'll be a bit of a repeat. So what do they do on social media? right? Billions and billions of us are connected to people through social media on things like LinkedIn, Facebook, which your kids use much less, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. Did I miss? I'm sure there are others. Others that your kids use? Most of them? Okay. So what happens is it's a constant feed. And our addiction to social media, we were just talking a little bit about, you know, why is social media so addicting? What do you guys think? What is it about it that keeps us going back to it over and over and over again? I know people that spend hours and hours a day. I mean, they're wonderful people that I love and care for, but they spend hours and hours and hours a day. Yes.
It's convenient.
It is convenient. Yep. It's in your pocket. You have access to it 24 hours a day, anytime you want to. Can't fall asleep? It's right beside you. Yes.
Can we pause a little bit till we get the translation
Oh,
set up?
sure.
I think that so many people here are not
Yeah.
tracking it.
So this discussion part ممكن نعملها بالعربي a little bit. ليه تاني احنا بنقضي وقت كتير على السوشيال ميديا؟ Yes.
علشان هي مش محتاجه تقلبي بريموت وتدوري عليها، هي حاجه بتجيلك لوحدها فانت بس بتتحركي فيها.
اوكي. يا زي الكونفينينت اللي كانت الكونفينينت صح. اسباب تانية. الاصحاب عشان المسافات بتقدري like to communicate مع اصحاب اللي بعيده. That's true. It keeps you connected. ما العيال برضه بتقول كده. Keeps us connected. ايه تاني؟
ممكن الاقي عليها اي حاجه انا عايزاها بسهوله جدا.
Yeah. Yeah.
حتى لو مش قادره ان انا اسال حد تاني ممكن اجيبها ومحدش شايفني ومحدش عارف انا بعمل ايه.
صح.
فاقدر اجيب اي سؤال في دماغي اساله وهجيب اجابته ولا احرجت نفسي ولا اتحركت قدام حد.
صح.
So easy.
صح. It's easy. It's very easy. So, social media, the reason why it's addicting, يعني for a lot of the things that you guys said, بس برضو we have to see إن هي it's a business. هما بيعملوا فلوس. The more they keep us there, the longer we stay on, the more that we use it, the more money they make. They create lots of pieces in it that keep us going back to look. بيخلونا نروح ونبص تاني وتاني وتاني ونقضي ساعة ورا ساعة. The whole idea إنك كل ما تعمل كده it's endless. تكمل like it never ends. That's something that it's like an all-you-can-eat buffet, right? You go and you have as much of it as you want, but you never get full. There are people now that are losing their jobs because of their addictions to things like social media or pornography. We'll talk about later too. They're literally losing their jobs. They can't get up and get to work, or they're using it too much while they're at work, and so they're getting fired for it. A lot of students now, they're not able to pay attention to their studies because things like social media and pornography, they're distracting. They make it hard to concentrate. They take up a lot of time. They're very time consuming. Do you know anybody who spends more than 2 hours a day on things like social media? Raise your hand. Do you know, تعرفوا حد بيقضي أكتر من ساعتين في اليوم on something like this? أكيد. Do you see that answer? أكيد. Like it's so common and normal. Yes. فراغ ايه boredom?
Yeah, boring.
Yes.
So هو بيملى الفراغ عندنا.
صح.
في نفس الوقت اني ممكن بيبقى في احتياجات ممكن تاخدها عن طريق السوشيال ميديا. Like for kids maybe love, maybe حاجات تانية كتير.
Attention.
Friendship, attention.
Yes.
So لو ولادنا بيدوروا على حاجة زي كده فهي بتملى فراغهم وبتديهم الحاجات اللي ناقصاهم سواء في البيت أو في المجتمع يعني.
صح. Yes. Yeah, the video games, they do the same things. No, we're not going to pass out the microphone right just yet because it's going to be a lot of discussion.
Just like give the couple minutes till we, or maybe a couple seconds till we give them the mic because people in the back they don't hear anything.
Yeah.
Or you,
Sure. I can repeat it.
Yes,
Sure.
repeat.
Sure. Yes. The video games.
other friends and with other kids the same age like them.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a very big problem we
Yeah.
have it, but I don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. So aren't they so smart, the marketers, that nowadays they have connected the social media piece to the video game piece, two things that are already very addicting. And now I can sit and play Fortnite from the comfort of my home while also wearing an earpiece and talking to all of my friends. I can have it all. And I can do it for hours and hours a day. Why would I ever want to stop? Right? Yes. Of course. Of course, I shouldn't, nobody wants to spend 5 hours studying. I would much rather just enjoy, or allow, there's fights happening in the home, or the atmosphere, حد بيزعق فيا, or اتنين بيتخانقوا or something. Sure, I don't want to sit in that. So it's a great escape. It's an escape for all of us. Okay. So what are the effects on children? So part of why they're the most vulnerable to this is because they have the most time. They're the most prone to being bored, right? Our kids are always saying, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored. So we talked about it being a solution for boredom, and that's why they're prone to it too. They don't feel like studying. They're also going through their identity development. They're learning about who they are. And as they learn about who they are, imagine if you have access to billions and billions of people and seeing who they are. And that helps me decide, well, do I want to be this person, or but that person gets a lot of attention. I'm going to be more like that person. And so they're trying to figure out who they are, and so they want to see more and more and more and more. Okay? Some of the negative effects include things like multitasking. They're trying to do... Oh. Sorry. Had. So some of the negative effects, like multitasking, where your kids are trying to do two things at the same time. Sometimes we do two, right? I'll focus on the kids. They're trying to do their homework, but they're also on they're texting at the same time. Or we can be trying to get our work done, but we're trying to have a conversation with somebody, and at the same time, yes, I'm listening, I'm listening, I'm listening. Right? We do it all the time. It's time consuming. It takes up hours and hours a day. And it keeps us from having a lot of face-to-face communication, right? To just sit and look at the other person and have a conversation and talk to them. We're not doing a lot of that anymore. It's created in a way that makes you want to consume more of it. We want to have more and more. Every time you have a little bit, you want to have even more. They create it this way on purpose. So people touch their phones over 2,000 times a day, which is a lot. We don't touch our spouse that many times a day, right? It's a lot. Social media makes up 20% of these, so about 1/5. So is it heavy use or is it addiction?
It starts as a use,
yeah.
and it turns to be addiction.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll tell you why it's addiction. So the definition of addiction, I won't read the whole thing, but the biggest piece of it is when the behavior starts to interfere with your ordinary responsibilities. It gets in the way of your ordinary responsibilities and your concerns and things like work, relationships, and health. It gets in the way, doesn't it? That's what makes it an addiction, is when it gets in the way. So how often does social media get in the way of you paying attention to the people around you? Or watching your kids at their soccer game when you're bored, right? Or when you're in the middle of trying to reply to a work email and you're trying to do multiple things at once. When you're trying to have a conversation with somebody and you're in the middle of using it. It distracts us. What kind of example, if it happens to us, what kind of example are we setting for our teens or our young children? It's not a very good example. And we have to own that. We have to be able to admit, we can't be saying, get off your phone, you're always on your phone, if we're doing the same thing, right? It's hypocritical. Okay, so our phones are a gateway to pornography, right? We give our 10 and 12-year-olds a phone because that's what everybody has now. But guess what you've also given them? There's a tiny device. If I grab mine, it's going to fall. Right? We've given them a tiny device that they can carry in their pocket that gives them access to pornography 24 hours a day, anytime they want it. And we put limits on the phones, right? No, you can only use it for this much. Or we set parent controls, or you're watching all of their moves. But essentially, you've still given them access to it all day long. About 87%, they surveyed college kids. By the age of college, 87% of college men have already viewed pornography, and 31% of college women have viewed it. So you have to address these issues with your kids from an early age. You can't be afraid to talk about these things. So when I gave them a survey, one of the Sunday school servants administered a survey to ask when was their first, how did they first learn about pornography? I would say the majority said health class. Said health class or friends. I want that answer to be you guys. I want the answer to be mom and dad. Mom and dad first talk to me about it because you're going to have the most accurate information to give them about it. So you have to address them early on because what happens is people who are in the market for this, they know how to find them as young as they need to be. Age doesn't matter to them. They're not waiting until they're 16 to all of a sudden start advertising to them. They do it at all ages. The advertisements, they pop up. If your kid misspells something in the internet search bar, right, can automatically just pop up by accident. Random YouTube videos, they'll be watching a little cartoon video, and there are people, they're not very nice people, who butcher these YouTube videos, and they'll put in images into the middle. So they'll be watching, whatever, Peppa Pig, and all of a sudden, something pops up in the middle. What happens is pornography acts like a magnet to our brains, all of our brains, right? It's not just the kids, it's not just the men, it's everybody. To everybody's brain, it's a magnet. It pulls you in to look. Even when the images are disturbing or frightening, it pulls us all in to look. It's kind of like when we watch a horror movie, right? And you don't want to look, and you're like, ugh, but you kind of want to know what's happening at the same time. That's what it does. So on a brain that's still developing, like your children's brain, it's still in the middle of developing. Anytime you repeat an activity, and I talked about this kind of the last time that I was here, but anytime you repeat an activity and you do it over and over again, it creates something called a neural pathway in your brain. It creates a path, and the more you do this activity, the clearer the path is, and so the message goes to your brain a lot faster. It gets stronger and stronger, that pathway, every time we do it. And what happens is anytime you do an activity that is pleasurable or rewarding, right? Something you enjoy, like talking with a good friend or eating delicious food or other things that you might enjoy, what happens is your brain releases dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical in there. It is a neurotransmitter. They're like little messengers in your brain, and it makes you feel that sense of reward and pleasure. It feels good. So what happens is it's stimulating, and you get this increase in dopamine, and it rewires your brain to have the same effect next time. So your brain just wants more of it. So the more you do anything that releases dopamine, let's say you exercise and it releases dopamine, you want to do it again. Or your kids ride a roller coaster, and it releases dopamine, and so then they want to do it again. So anytime they do a pleasurable activity, you just want to do it again. What happens for your kid's brain is that the adolescent brain releases 4 times as much dopamine as the adult brain does when it's involved in a rewarding activity. So they're getting a whole lot of pleasure at the same time. That's why to you, hanging out with your friend is enjoyable. To them, hanging out with their friend is 4 times more enjoyable than it is for you. So they want to do it more and more. The other thing that happens is their prefrontal cortex, this part of their brain, like right in the front here, that's in charge of their self-control and their rational thoughts, right? So when we say like, what were you thinking? Well, they weren't really thinking because this part hasn't fully developed yet. So don't ask that question. So combine all of those factors together and you can see why they're so much more vulnerable to pornography. So because it's also releasing, it can increase the levels of cortisol and testosterone in your bodies. It rewires the brain. And what happens is it starts to impact how they process emotions later on into adulthood. Okay. So this reward system that your brain has, because the kids' brains is at a peak of producing this dopamine in that age, they're constantly seeking pleasure and excitement, right? Why do you want to do this? Because it's fun. I'm bored. They're constantly looking for that reward and the pleasure and the excitement piece of it. And because their brain is still being formed, it hasn't fully, become complete yet. They call it neuroplasticity. It's like a piece of plastic that is still forming, is being shaped. They're so much more vulnerable to things like addiction because the brain hasn't fully developed. It's just like if they start using drugs at a much earlier age, whether that's cigarette smoking or vaping or gambling or drug use or any of these kinds of things, or pornography or video games, they're so much more vulnerable to that addiction. All right. So what are the problems that are associated with pornography? We talked a little bit before, it's similar to social media in that it affects their ability to concentrate. Their concentration problems happen. There's a big link with depression. So people who use pornography frequently, they also tend to have higher levels of depression. It also increases their social anxiety. And sometimes they already have social anxiety, and so pornography becomes an easy thing to use because it's an experience they can do alone. And it also breeds social anxiety too, because what happens is they're feeling this sense of shame and guilt, and when they're around other people, they're nervous and they're anxious and they're tense and they're worried that someone's gonna find out. What if I say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing and somebody finds out? Yes. Yes.
المحاضرة دي كلها عن موضوع الأفلام ولا موضوع الإنترنت والتليفونات؟
A little bit of both, but the primary topic they wanted was pornography.
Oh, okay. All
yeah.
Right.
Yes. Oh.
قلتي ان الميديا بتخلي اولادنا يعرفوا الحاجات اللي هي ما كانش المفروض ان هم يعرفوها زي السيجاريت والفيب والحاجات اللي زي كده اهو. طب اتس اوكي اذا كان في اسره مثلا عارفوا ايه الاسره ممكن تعمله علشان خاطر تنصح او ترجع بقى.
To break any addiction? ولا just use? Sorry, Zawadi?
No, do you understand the question?
Kind of, most of it.
She said if already family is being involved.
Yeah.
How can we do to reverse the situation?
Yeah, okay, to reverse the situation. It depends, yani, to what degree. Yani, like if they're just using, it depends. Every case is so different. So if there's addiction, sometimes they need a specialist. They need to seek professional help to break an addiction. It's not something that just mom and dad can help them stop, because it's not that easy. Once the brain becomes addicted, it's really, really hard to break it. A lot of times you have to remove everything that's in their path, right? Like an alcoholic, they can't, a lot of times we'll tell alcoholics, you can't, sorry, yes? Like with alcohol, they recommend, they'll tell them you shouldn't, don't go out with friends, you shouldn't be at a bar, you shouldn't be sitting to have dinner if they're serving drinks. Don't spend time with friends that are drinking because it's too much. It's too much of a temptation for the addiction. The brain immediately begins to crave it and it becomes a really overwhelming craving. So a lot of times, that's why like rehab centers are very effective, because you have to completely remove them from the environment that created the habit in the first place in order to continue it. Yes. Yeah.
Addicted
To the games.
That's
Yeah.
a big problem.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know how to stop them to do it. Actually, it's my son, the little one.
Yeah. So a lot of times when it comes to things like someone being addicted to something, it's usually eliminating. That's the biggest solution. So even, let's say you're addicted to a video game and they want to play for hours and hours. Even if you say you're only allowed to play for 1 hour, they're still getting the fix. So a lot of times it's about completely getting rid of it. And sometimes that's the extreme.
I know, but we need replacement.
Yeah.
يعني مش بس ان احنا نعمل eliminate للحاجه دي او نستوب الحاجه دي completely. لازم نعمل replacement بحاجه تانية to be more interesting عشان خاطر البرين يوصل للماكس joy or whatever. فانا متهيألي اني مش بس ان احنا نبعد عن الحاجه دي، لازم نعمل حاجه replacement عشان خاطر نملى الجزء دوت، نستبدله، نريبليس it with something else. فيقدر هو من نفسه ان هو accept why I eliminate الحاجه ديت او ان انا ليه هو have to stop الحاجه ديت. فلما يبقى عنده حاجه تانية تشغله اكتر، بالاخص في السن الصغير it's more easy عن السن الكبير طبعا، لاني انا ببقى ليا الكنترول الاكبر على الطفل وهو صغير، وانا اللي بوديه للاكتيفيتيز ديت. انا اللي ممكن اوديه مثلا يلعب ساكر، يروح سويمنج براكتس، اي حاجه. فانا ممكن البيرنتس في السن الصغير بيبقى اكتر كنترول على الولاد. ف يعني لو انا عملت اليمينيت بس او ستوب بس، هتبدا الفايت ما بيني وما بينه طول الوقت. لكن لازم الريبليسمنت اهم كمان. يعني انا ممكن قبل الاليمينيت ان انا اعمل الريبليسمنت الاول، فهو لما يلاقي حاجه تانية هو من نفسه هيبعد عن الحاجه الاولى.
So a replacement can be finding another activity or getting them involved in sports or playing with, having a friend over to play where they don't play those things. Sometimes they can play. I'm not saying they can't play video games. I mean, they definitely can, as long as there are certain controls in place. You can set the time limits, and sometimes that is helpful. But we're a little bit off topic, so did you want to add something?
I'm just going to add one thing. We don't want to. We wanted to really magnify the point Manel was saying. Now, with drugs addiction, it started with a video game addiction when they were young. We don't want it to say that this is something trivial. Getting connected or getting attached to an instrument, instant fix. We call it a medicine, an instant fix. I need to fix my boredom. I'm going to just be on the phone all the time. When this child gets older, he will get an easy fix from something else. And this is going to end up with no end. I like the idea of always finding a substitution for the time to make sure that the time is really used effectively, but we don't want it to ignore, oh, it's just a game. He's on the phone all the time, and it's a simple thing. It will turn out to be a big thing in the future.
All right, so I'm going to refocus us because what I'm really here to talk about is pornography. And while we are talking about some addictions, it's really just to focus on this specific one. And I'm aware that we have little ears in the room, so if you're uncomfortable, feel free to take them outside. Okay, so some other negative effects that are associated with pornography use are low motivation. A lot of times when there's a lot of, when they're looking at pornography, a lot of times they're not interested in doing any other activities. It becomes a big distraction, and they don't feel like doing anything else. It really impacts their perception of themselves. They start to look at themselves very negatively, and their self-esteem goes down, and their confidence goes down. It takes a big hit on how they see themselves. It's also leading to a lot of erectile dysfunction, right? So this is where it's not functioning. And it's happening at younger and younger ages. So they've always known that a lot of pornography use leads to erectile dysfunction in older men, but they're finding it at younger and younger ages now. So young adults in their 20s, they're finding these problems existing. It's impacting relationships, both their current relationships and their future relationships. So when teenagers use a lot of pornography now, it makes them very unhappy in their relationships later on. It happens in marriages. So when a lot of, whether it's the men or the women, so women aren't immune to this too, it happens to both, it leads to a lot of dissatisfaction because it creates a lot of myths in your mind of what real sex is supposed to be like. It also distances us from our relationships with God because there's so much shame that's associated with it. We start to feel ashamed and unlovable and like we could never be accepted for kind of who we are, or we feel unloved from the first place. Okay, what are some warning signs to look for in your children? There's a loss of interest or ability to socialize with their peers. So they're not interested in hanging out with their friends or spending time with them or spending time with the family. They have a decreased interest in their school activities, so they don't feel like going to baseball practice. They don't feel like doing any of the things that they were once doing. They kind of just, they're no longer interested in stuff. They start lying to parents about their sexual or romantic activities. They're not being honest. They're starting to have interest in dating activities that are beyond their age level. So of course, around the high school age, they're going to have interests in the idea of dating. But when it starts to be not age appropriate, like they're interested in dating somebody who's 40, 50 years old, or with having relationships with younger children, it really messes with their idea of what a healthy relationship should look like. There's a lot more secrecy. They spend a lot of time, I mean, teenagers do this anyway, spend a lot of time in their room alone, but when it becomes really excessive, it's important to be concerned. And if they are viewing or masturbating to pornography for many hours a day, that's also a red flag and a concern. All right, talking to your child. So the biggest emphasis here is to learn how to talk to your child about pornography, because it can be a hard topic to bring up. But it's important to talk about it because, again, you don't want them hearing this from the other people that they're in school with. You don't want them hearing it in their health class. You want to be the one to give them the information. And a lot of times with things like addiction in general, teaching them how their brain works, whether it's about video games or drugs or pornography, teaching them how their brains, it's hard for them. The more they do something, the harder it is for them to stay away from it. Teaching them about that can make a big difference. They like learning about themselves and how their bodies work. Share the positive and accurate information with your child. God created sex. Sex is good. He made it for us to enjoy in marriage. Not alone and not by idolizing other images. Give them the good information, not just the bad. Because when we come at them, we're like, don't do this. This is bad. This is terrible for you. Do you know how bad this is for you? Do you know how horrible this is going to be? They don't want to hear any of that. But they are going to want to hear the good things that also come with it. Avoid responding out of fear. So don't just react because you're so afraid that something is, going to be so terrible. React out of love. Respond in love, not just out of fear. It's not just one talk. You're not going to be able to just bring this up one time. This has to be a continued conversation, a repeated conversation that you bring up over and over and over again. Not in a nagging kind of way, but like a checking in type of thing. You can find opportunities to talk about it. So, for example, after you find out that they've been viewing sexually explicit material, if you find out that they have been visiting pornography sites, that's an opportunity to talk about it. If you guys are watching a movie together and there is a sex scene in it, that's an opportunity to talk a little bit about, why do they put sex in movies? And how should we be looking at things like this? And what does our family believe about when sex should happen and what's all involved? Let's say a catalog of lingerie arrives in the mail. That's an opportunity to talk about it. These are all windows for you to be able to start these conversations with your kids rather than never talking about it until a problem happens. When you guys are if they're watching music videos or in their video games, it's involved there too. All right. You can share what your family values are, right? Like in our family, we treat people with respect. We value them. And these images, they don't respect the people that they are depicting. All right. Another thing that can help when you're talking to your kids is to really understand where they're coming from. So if you acknowledge that it's hard to resist these things, or acknowledge that they do want the attention of others. And so sometimes putting up pictures of themselves where they're not fully dressed in order to get the attention or to get the thumbs up or to get the likes, that's going to be appealing to them. You have to be able to empathize and understand their position, that these are hard things that they are facing and trying to resist. Help them understand how to stand up to the pressure of creating sexual images of themselves, sending them to others, right? This is a common thing that's happening in high schools. Are you guys seeing this? Are you aware that this happens? Yes, right? So helping them figure out how to resist those pressures, because it is a lot of pressure. Figure out how to set limits together or limit their exposure. So why don't we together set up some parental controls on all of our computers? Why don't we put all of our computers in a public area so that we are all looking at things that we will only look at, knowing that everybody else in our family is around. Sometimes doing those kinds of things, like we're all in this together, we're all working to help each other, can make it an easier way to talk about things. Help them understand, have conversations, right, about how pornography doesn't give us a healthy understanding of what a relationship looks like, but it's an unhealthy view. And so show them both. Help them see the differences between this is what a healthy relationship looks like, and this is what relationships look like in pornography material. All right, how to help. So these are kind of more practical ways of how to help children who are already accessing pornography. So if they're getting there because they're clicking the pop-up ads, you'll want to increase your internet security settings. If they're looking at it with a friend at a friend's house, you might want, so we're not going to say, no more, you can't be friends with this person. That's not helpful. But maybe instead you can suggest, you know what, instead of you going to Johnny's house, why don't we have Johnny come over to our house and play so that it's under your supervision. If they're regularly looking at it when they're alone, then you want to talk about, why are they looking? Have a conversation. It doesn't just have to be, this is bad and don't do this. What's going on? What's making you, why do you want to look at this? What's making you turn to this? You're going to want to understand what's happening for them. Are they feeling lonely? Are they feeling depressed? Are they feeling upset about something? Are they really bored and need to find a hobby? What is it? Learn about your child. Give them an opportunity to share what's happening rather than making them be defensive right away. Are they looking at pornography to just find out more about sex? Then have a conversation with them. Be the one to educate them about it rather than them learning in these other ways. All right. And if you're concerned that they're watching it regularly and they're heavily addicted to it, you may want to seek a professional to help them with this. You can start with your pediatrician. That's a great place to start too. All right, action plan. I think it's really helpful to have a family technology plan. So there are limits for everyone. We could all use this, us as adults. If somebody were to tell us, okay, you know what, at 10 o'clock, you put the phone away, you don't touch it again. If you have a family technology plan where there are limits for everybody involved and the safeguards, the parental controls are there for the adults and for the kids. And so you let them know, you know what, I can be tempted by this stuff too. And it's not healthy for either of us to look at it. It's not just you shouldn't look at it because you're a kid and I can because I'm an adult. Nobody should be looking at this. This isn't a helpful thing for any of us. Let's all work together to eliminate this from our home, from our lives. And so set up the controls for everybody to follow. Put the technology in a public place, even yours. You know what? I'm also going to put my laptop in the dining room so that I can make sure that whatever I'm looking at is appropriate for everybody in this house. We talked before about taking advantage of the opportunities that come up when there are things involved like media and sex. Talk to them about why certain media is harmful to their brain, right? I talked to you about how it impacts your brain. Share some of that with them so that they can learn how things work for them. Decide to hold off. If your children are younger, decide to hold off on social media until they're older. Fight against the current. Stand up for the fight and the constant nagging that they do for you. Just hold off for as long as you possibly can. There is nothing good that comes from it. Don't feel like, oh, but they're going to be left out. Oh, but they're going to be lonely. Oh, but they're going to be the only one who's not connected. Oh, it's just going to make them be more of an oddball, and they're already kind of odd and struggling. The risks that come with it are not worth it. They're just not. Talk openly. Show understanding. Be understanding. I know it must be so hard. I know how hard it is. Everybody in your class is doing this except for you. Be honest. Or show understanding when they're struggling with pornography. I know that this must be so hard for you not to look at. Of course it's going to be appealing. All of our brains are wired to desire these things. It's how God made us. Stay calm. Don't get angry. Don't start yelling. They're not going to listen to the things that you're trying to say. Speak calmly. That's how your message is going to get across. Avoid the cycle of guilt and shame. So when you make your kids and yourselves, when we do this to ourselves, when we feel guilty and ashamed about something, we're actually more likely to do it again, not less likely. It doesn't help us. It makes it even harder. So let's say you're completely different track. Let's say you're on a diet and you decide you're not going to eat cake. And so then you have a piece of cake. If you sit there and you shame yourself, you're like, oh, again, you failed again. You said you barely made it 2 days. It's only like day 3. You did it again and you feel guilty and you feel ashamed. Guess what's going to happen the next day? You're going to feel like, I already failed. What's the point? Might as well have some more. Right? I'll just start next week. And you keep on doing this. Well, the same thing happens with our kids. If you make them feel guilty and ashamed for doing something, and they start feeling ashamed about themselves, they're more likely to do it again the next time. Instead, what you have to do is help them feel better about themselves. You're such a great person. I know that this is not something that you are happy that you did either, but it's okay. It's okay that it happened. Let's find a way out of this together. Let's work together to help you get to a better place rather than piling on the guilt and shame. We're so good at that in this culture, aren't we? We're so good at the guilt and shame. It just keeps things going. And what it does, too, is not only does it perpetuate it, but it makes them more likely to they'll just lie to you about it next time so that they don't have to feel the guilt and shame from you, even though they'll feel it internally. All right. Any thoughts, questions? Yes. Oh, yes. You need a microphone.
Yeah, if we have questions,
Yes.
please raise your hand. Give me a moment to give you the mic so that everybody else can hear what you're saying and we avoid repetitive question.
هو ايه السن المناسب اللي ابدا اخش معاهم في الكونفرزيشن ديت؟ يعني بتهيألي اني مش لازم اشوفهم او اعرف ان في حاجه هم متابعينها او بيشوفوها غلط عشان ابدا اتكلم معاهم، ولا في سن معين ببدا اتكلم ااهلهم لدوت. يعني ايه السن المناسب اللي يسمح لي ان انا اخش في الكونفرزيشن دي مع ابني او بنتي؟
I think حتى من سن صغير، يعني like 4 or 5 years old, you're not going to say, مش هتقولي, like, oh, by the way, there's pornography, we need to talk about this. But in their age, because I said it's a continued conversation that you're going to have over the years, 4 or 5 years old, you know what, Habibi, you can't have this by yourself. Mommy needs to make sure that all of the things are good, because there are bad things that are on the internet. There are things that are on the computer that are not good for you to see. They're not good for any of us to see. And then they're a little bit older, we start talking about what those things are, right? So 9, 10 years old, we're talking about, there are people that are on the internet that are specifically looking for ways to hurt kids. And I want to help protect you from those things. And there are images that are on there that are not good for your eyes. They're not things that God intended for you to see. And then they get a little older, right? We're at 12, 13. We start talking about what are those things. There are a lot of pictures of nudity on the internet. And Again, those aren't things that God intended for any of us to see. I'm not supposed to see anybody else naked except for my husband. You're not supposed to see anybody else naked except for your future spouse. And you allow your family members, to help you in healthy ways, and the doctor. But other than that, we're not meant to see other people that way. And so you start having age-appropriate conversations from super-duper little all the way until they're adults. But the conversation, it continues to kind of evolve, like it gets bigger as they go.
Naveen, quick question. So is there a point of no return? Is there a point of, you say that this is a lost case? When do you seek professional help?
I don't think there's a point of no return. It's never a lost cause, whether it's a 50-year-old man or a 20-year-old young adult who no longer lives with you. You seek professional help when it really fits that definition of addiction that I talked about before, where it's interfering with their ability to go to work, to go to school, to get their homework done. Not just get their homework done in general, but like excessively get their homework done. When they're really just not able to do any of the normal functioning things, when it's beyond their control and your control, when they're refusing to talk to you or anybody else about it to get the help that they need, then it's time to seek professional help. Did that answer?
Yeah. Do you think this will violate their trust when you bring them to somebody else? When you bring them to you, for example, Naveen, do you think that this will break any future communication with the kids and will make them feel, I can't trust you anymore with any of my secrets? Now everybody knows about me?
Ideally, no, because you're not dragging them into the office. You've already had a conversation that says, you know what, if you're not comfortable talking to me about this, that's perfectly fine. Let's go to somebody you can talk to about this, that you can trust, who isn't going to share any of this with anybody else here, including mom and dad, right? So when I see teenagers, I don't share everything with mom and dad. I mean, all of the therapists you see, they're not going to share everything with you in order to have your children's trust, unless they're at risk. Those are the times they're going to do it. So you would have already had the conversation with them that, listen, I just want you to get the help that you need. And if that means me not being involved and you talking to somebody else, then that's what I'm going to help you do, so that you can go and talk to somebody else to help you feel better. So you're not actually breaking their trust with anything. You're just helping them get the help that they need in a different way. Other questions, thoughts? We've got one over here, needs a microphone.
So when you say in each age we should introduce a certain explanation to them, sometimes this will make them more curious, maybe. They're not just going to take whatever the part that you gave them and they will be content with your explanation. Maybe they will be more curious and they will go behind your back and try to find, maybe you will open their eyes to something that they will look more into behind your back. How to avoid that?
Usually we are behind the game. Usually they know more than we think they do. So it's very unlikely that you're going to. And if they don't know, if they don't already, and you're giving more information than you need, then one, don't give more information than they actually need. And two, you're having these conversations so that if they have more questions, they can feel comfortable talking to you. So that rather than them going and looking for other things, if they have a question, they're like, but wait, what's this thing? They would feel comfortable asking you these questions rather than kind of going off and digging on their own. If they feel, and they have a very good sense of this, if they feel that you are lying or deceiving them in a certain way and you're not giving the full story, then they are going to go look for things, which is why it's so important to be honest with them. So it's not going to say, there are these bad and awful pictures that you are never going to want to look at. No, there are pictures, and you're going to want to look at them. And they're going to be really hard to not look at. It's just that they're not healthy for us. You give the full picture so that there isn't more for them to want to go dig. They know that I trust mom to tell me what I need to know. And they're going to hear from friends too. Yeah.
So we are not all here intellectually capable of, you know, putting words in a way that is appropriate to the age of the children, or maybe maybe we get surprised or off-guarded by their questions that it's like, wow, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Is there a trusted resources or like somewhere we should be getting this, you know, articles or the best way to address this?
Yeah.
Like either on the internet or maybe books that we can look for?
So there are a lot of Christian websites that specifically tackle the problem with pornography, and they give you a ton of advice and, you know, common mistakes to avoid. And one of the common mistakes is when you're caught off guard, don't just respond. Take some time. Tell them. Say, you know what, that's a really good question. I'm going to take a day or two to think about that. Let's have lunch together in a couple of days. Just sit down, you and me, and let's talk about this. But give me some more time. Or even honestly say, I don't know all the answers to that. That's a really good question. Let me go find out. Let me go learn about it, and I'll come back and we'll have more of a talk. But be sure that you follow through on that promise. When you say you're going to talk about it later, be sure that you actually do.
Can we share some of these?
Some resources?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want me to pull them up now, but we can
send
I can send you the list. Yeah. Yes. There are lots. Honestly, if you Google Christian resources for children pornography, you will find it. But I have to tell you, the idea of feeling like you're not intellectually able to have these conversations is totally false. You don't have to be an intellectual about it. You can just talk kindly with your child. Just see their heart rather than just the behavior, and show them that love and that care. That's really all that they need to see. And so they don't have to hear science. They can just hear your care and love for them. And that can be a big starter.
Can I say something?
Please.
For the servants? For the servants, we had a meeting at 1, but we canceled the meeting. So we all going to be here, continue with the question. Sorry, Anivid.
Sure.
So, yeah, we don't want to interrupt. I think this is very important, especially for the servants, عشان إحنا نتعامل مع عيال ومع محتاجين إن إحنا نعرف المعلومات دي كلها.
Do you see patients like that in your clinic? Do you see kids with different addiction problems? It doesn't have to be pornography. And what's your success rates? I'm not talking about you specifically, but is this something that is professionally breakable kind of thing?
Absolutely. No, it's definitely, I mean, there's a lot of progress that can be made for sure. I do see kids, and a lot of times I'll see a kid where, you know, I saw I think I saw a young girl, and the parent brought them into me who had gotten very angry that they had found out that their daughter was looking at pornography, and had gotten so angry and was making them track it on a family calendar, right? So that this is in public view and everyone is seeing, so there's so much guilt and shame. Come to find that this young girl, the pornography wasn't the essential piece of it. She'd been depressed the whole time, and this just kind of became an outlet where she finally got to experience some sense of pleasure, which she wasn't having in any other area in her life. So sometimes it's not just looking at pornography. Sometimes the issue happened way before, and that just kind of became what they resorted to. And it was really working with her on her depression that helped completely eliminate the pornography use. So that's kind of just one example. That's not always the case, but oftentimes there's so much more. And the parent just wants them to talk about their pornography use, but this kid is struggling with so many other things. So
it was the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Kind of
Can this lead them to another addiction? I'm sorry. Yeah. Can this lead them to another addiction, to get off from one? They can go do drinking or something else?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because when they get that huge surge of the dopamine, they start looking, so let's say pornography stops existing, they're going to look for a fix in another way. And a lot of drug users do the same thing, right? So if they are starting to use cocaine, and all of a sudden they can't find any more cocaine. They'll just find a different drug to meet the fix instead. So it's very easy to transfer that feeling of addiction from one substance or use to another. Or a lot of people who were alcoholics or cigarette smokers, they'll just find something out, like it'll turn into shopping, or it may no longer be a drug, but they just have an addiction to other lighter-ish things sometimes. Other
question. So, do you think in kids at the teen age, do they see that or notice that in their friends? I mean, do they know that their friends could have this problem in school? Because sometimes when we ask, they say, oh, this is kind of, everything is okay, nobody does anything wrong, and they don't want to talk about it, probably to protect their friendships. But I just need to know, around this, the teenage, is that something they tell each other?
Yeah, they all know. I would say it's very rare to find someone who hasn't been exposed. They all get taught it in health class too, so they all learn. They know that their friends, I mean, they know whether that friends also look at it, and they talk about it. They do talk about whether they're making jokes about it or talking about it, but so that depends on your reaction, right? Because if I tell you that my friend Susie shared with me that she looks at pornography, and then you say, and then in a couple of days I say, hey, can I go to the movies with Susie? And you say no, or all of a sudden I notice that you don't want me hanging out with Susie, I'm not going to share much with you next time about my friends. I think that there has to be, if you have that open dialogue, so okay, Susie looks at pornography, has she tried sharing it with you? What do you think you would do? Ask the questions. Instead of you being the one to give the answers, ask the questions. What would you do if Susie tried to share it with you? How does it feel when Susie's talking to you about the pornography that she looks at? Try to get a feel for what's happening with them, and then ask them, well, what would be something that's helpful for you? How can I help? Sometimes they will be honest and say, I don't really want to hang out with her. I just don't want to be mean, and I don't want to reject her. And then you can be like, okay, well, what can I do to help? And then you can get involved. But if they're like, it's fine, Mom, she does it by herself, and it's her own thing. I'm not going to judge her for that, right? Because that's their big thing. I'm not going to judge her for that. Okay, well, let me know if there's anything I can do to help you, or if you feel like, if Susie starts watching it at our house, I'm not okay with that. You can still set up your guidelines, but don't go ballistic, don't go so over the top with them that it makes them not want to share with you in the future.
So, if you notice some of those issues when you're serving those kids, and you think they need professional help, of course you cannot do that without going through the parents. And when you share with the parents do not believe you or do not want to accept it. How do you deal with those situations?
I think that if they have shared it with you in confidence, I would have a conversation with them about what other things are you comfortable sharing with Mom and Dad that you're struggling with, so that we can get you the help that you need. So let's say they share with you they're looking at pornography. Okay, well, what else is going on? Well, I have no friends. I just feel so lonely. Okay, well, can we share that part with Mom and Dad so that that can be a way to get you in to talk to someone? And then when you're in there, you can share all of the things that you want to share until you're ready to talk to Mom and Dad. But the most helpful thing is going to be for them eventually, for them to not keep hiding it, but to find a way to engage Mom and Dad in the conversation so that they can help by putting the computer in a public place or setting up passwords or things like that. But in the meantime, as a servant, yeah, you're going to want to help the parents understand that maybe there's another problem too, and that we can let's start working on that, and then they can help. If the parents are in denial, I would say a school counselor might be the most helpful thing. I mean, if the parents are refusing, your hands are kind of tied. There's very little you can do.
And Naveen, when do you revert to priests, and what's their role in this, and how do you know what to say, when to say it, and when to bring them, and what are they supposed to do? What should you expect from a priest?
I would want my children using the priest to help them figure out how to repent and confess about this and talk, like have a dialogue about what they're experiencing and what's going on. But the priest can't be all that it is. There has to be the family support that's there. So I would want the priest's role to be to help reduce that guilt and shame about it. You know, God has forgiven you, and God understands, and He knows that this is something that, you know, we as humans are going to sin and we're going to fall, and they can help provide some resources and some tips, but ultimately I don't think the priests can carry the entire load of something like this because they're not with your child 24/7. So there has to be parent involvement, family involvement too.
Naveen, what do you think? Yeah. What do you think about sleepover and staying long hours with even Coptic friends? Because we tend as parents to think, oh, my child is with this Coptic friend for 12 hours or for 6 hours. I don't have to check on her. But I don't have to know what they're doing. I know she's safe. What do you think of this?
I think that Coptic people are not immune to the dangers of the world. So it doesn't matter what the friend is or how religious they are or how much they love Jesus. We're all humans, and we all fall into the same sins, and we all experience the same things. And kids will experience the same things, no matter whether their friends are Coptic or not Coptic. So it's not to be feared that they are friends with these Americans, but they're friends with these church kids. They're going to be exposed to things no matter what route they go. So I would treat it with the same, emphasizing the same family values that you have, no matter who it is that they're with. There was someone back here that had the microphone. Yes.
لو تسمحي لي يا دكتورة نيفين، يعني الحلول دي جميلة أوي، لكن في حلول يمكن أقوى ومؤثرة. كم مرة الصلاة عملت مفعول في ناس فعلا كانوا وحشين قوي وبقوا حلوين، وكم مرة حمت الصلاة ناس من انهم يقعوا في الإدمان. نشوف أغسطينوس، يوسف، موسى لما كان في قصر فرعون. الله هو أمس واليوم وإلى الأبد. من غير ربنا ما هيعمل بصلاتنا في أولادنا لن يحدث أي تغيير. تغيير من جوه عايز ربنا، عايز إيد ربنا. حقيقي الحلول دي ممكن تجيب نتيجة، لكن مع وجود ربنا 100% موافق.
Absolutely. Nope, أنا معاك 100%. Absolutely. I think, yeah, pray for your child is definitely part of your action plan. Pray, and pray some more. That's going to be one of the strongest, most helpful advocates in our court.
Having those conversations, the parents with the children, it's not always a comfortable thing for the parents. It's probably more comfortable for the children than the parents. So sometimes the parents, they resort to Sunday school to do that, and we have programs for that. However, when the conversation is initiated by their Sunday school teacher, they are more comfortable now talking about those things with the person who initiated that conversation with, not with their parents. Is that helping or hurting? Because now the kids, they will go when they have issues to their Sunday school teacher to talk about it, not to their parents.
Yeah. It's helpful and hurtful. So it's helpful that they have someone to talk to, like their Sunday school teachers, but it's hurtful because you're just pushing them away from you. Just because you're uncomfortable with something, you're creating more distance between you and them. And then we get upset that they're not sharing enough with us. And that's not fair to put on them when we've, pushed them off onto someone else. So it can be helpful temporarily, but long term, it is very hurtful because it distances you from your child. And I mean, you don't know. What if the servant decides to move in 6 months? What are you going to do then? You're the one who's the stable, constant relationship in their life. You're not going anywhere, but there's no telling where the servant's going. You can say something. Wait, we need a mic. You need a microphone, or I'm going to get in trouble. We're wrapping up. Okay, last one.
Okay, I just feel that with young families, with their trying financially to establish their work, and they work long hours, and it's very hard to establish all this relationship with, and the trust and the talk and all the time. I mean, it's just very hard, and it's just, again, to elaborate on the praying is a good thing, because seriously, I don't know how my kids because it's all like praying and saying, okay, Ya Rabbi, idini nas koyesa.
Right.
Yeah, because sometimes it's very hard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And knowing that they're in God's hands. And to add to what you were saying, you're not only praying for them, but teaching them to pray for themselves. You know, like I've tried, I can't help you, or I'm going to do what I can to help you, but you have to help yourself, and pray for yourself. Go to God. If you're not comfortable talking to me, go talk to God about it. Go in prayer and share everything with Him, and help them seek prayer as a comfort too. Thank you, guys.
I have just one question, last question. We talked about it as a diocese level. Can we have resources for the diocese?
Yeah.
People like you and others, and some educational material that help the servants and the parents to fight this problem?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like,
I'd be happy
would you
to
see this as an avenue that could be beneficial for the whole diocese as a resource?
I think I definitely have a lot of handouts and booklets and stuff that I'd be happy to pass on for the diocese, for sure. There was one last question.
So, sorry, I missed the front end of the conversation, but like something very important. Like I feel like from my own experiences, like I go and we do a hiring process, and we get a perfect candidate, perfect guy, perfect gal, and then we go through a process and discover like all this kind of stuff. It's unspottable for me. Like it's very confusing. So how can we spot addicts so we can start helping them if they're not talking?
How can you spot addicts?
Yeah, I mean, like, how can I know that that kid in front of me or that teenager is having an issue?
Is struggling with an addiction?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the warning signs that we went through earlier, when they start isolating, or when their behaviors are different, or they're not capable of, completing their daily tasks, like their responsibilities that they have. I think a lot of those kinds of red flags, the warning signs that we were mentioning earlier, tend to fall in with most addictions, as well as the physical signs, right? Like when you're seeing things in their physical body looking different, can be big signs. So
we will share the information. I can't thank you enough, Naveen. You have tackled a very thorny task, and it's a very difficult subject. وإن نلاقي حد يتكلم في الموضوع دوت مش سهل، وإن هو يتكلم بالشجاعة ديت ويتكلم بالوضوح دوت مش سهل برضه إن احنا نلاقي حد زي كده. فتhank you نيفين for doing that. خلي بالكم إن احنا عايشين في مجتمع مختلف تماما عن المجتمع اللي انتوا نشأتوا فيه. بغض النظر هو المجتمع اللي احنا نشأنا فيه دلوقتي بقى زي كده هوت ولا لا، that's a different story. بس اللي أنا بقوله دلوقتي إن المجتمع هنا هوت is very very different, unless you are equipped, unless إنك أنت عندك الإجابات وعندك مستعد إنك أنت ترد على الحاجات دهيت، مش هتلحق تشوف الأولاد دولت يفضلوا في الكنيسة. الأولاد دولت هتفقدهم. الكتاب اللي احنا هنوزعه عليكم دلوقتي اسمه حتى لا نفقد أولادنا. كتاب من الأنبا مكاريوس اسمه حتى لا نفقد أولادنا. Please take it and read it. الموضوع ده موضوع مهم جدا جدا جدا. Naveen was kind enough إن هي to allow us to send any questions. لو انتوا محتاجين انك تتكلموا معاها privately، محتاجين انك انتوا تتكلموا معاها عن طريق الايميل، we can help connect you with Naveen through email and let you ask the questions. انا عارف ان في اسئله كتيره، ما تتكسفش انك تسال، لانك انت لو اتكسفت انك تسال او عملت زي النعامه اللي بتدفن راسها في الارض، انت الوحيد اللي هتندم، مفيش حد تاني غيرك اللي هيندم، واولادك هم اللي هيضيعوا. فبليز don't be shy. تفضلوا نصلي مع بعض. اللهم اجعلنا مستحقين نقول بشكر. يا أبانا الذي في السماوات ليتقدس اسمك، ليأتي ملكوتك، لتكن مشيئتك كما في السماء كذلك على الأرض. خبزنا كفافنا أعطنا اليوم، واغفر لنا ذنوبنا كما نغفر نحن أيضا مذنبين إلينا، ولا تدخلنا في تجربة لكن نجينا من العدو الشرير، بالمسيح يسوع ربنا، لأن لك الملك والقوة والمجد إلى الأبد آمين. من فضلكم خدوا الكتاب قبل ما تمشوا.